Hey guys, this is your host Richard with another marvelous video. If there's one marathon I've aced in life, it's certainly movie marathons. Who doesn't love a good movie marathon on a long weekend? And you know what's the best kind? You bet your ass I'm gonna say horror movies. I personally believe if you really want to bond with someone, there's no better way to do it than getting scared out of your senses together in front of a glowing flat screen. Whether it's the jolt of unexpected jump scares, the brooding ambiance, the terror of monstrous creatures, or the supernatural mysteries, there's a wealth of fun to be found in the genre, but only if it's done right. Not every scary movie brings you the hilarious campy horror experience. A few of them are truly twisted and disturbing to a point that even the most seasoned fans would struggle to sit through. While scary movies might not be boring, finding the perfect list for your weekend-long horror movie marathon certainly is. Lucky for you, I finished the daunting task of sorting through a heap of dull horror duds to create just the perfect list for you. So, ranging from classic horror movies to the artsy elevated frights that tap into a brisk social commentary to get your noodle grinding, here's the only list you'll ever need for the scariest horror movies ever made. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin.
You know what she did?
The Exorcist, 1973. Back in the 1970s, horror movies took two separate paths. One focusing on realistic horrors like Psycho and Night of the Living Dead, grounding the essence of terror in everyday situations for maximum impact, and the second path embraced a surreal and gory dreamlike horror, prioritizing artistic visuals, bizarre elements, and explicit violence over logic. In that era, only one film could successfully blend these two approaches with perfect balance, and that's The Exorcist. This movie simply deserves to reign at the top of the list because of its ability to combine real-life terror with artistic flair and shocking imagery. It's not exactly surprising that William Friedkin's masterpiece still holds a prominent place in discussions about horror films, even though it's in its 50th year, and once you watch The Exorcist, you'll quickly understand why. The story revolves around Regan, the daughter of a famous actress who innocently plays with a Ouija board in the basement. Well, if you've ever wondered why most parents warn against such seemingly harmless toys, a young Linda Blair in this film might plead a good case. Through this Ouija board, an unwelcome presence takes over the girl's body, leading to the arrival of the titular exorcist. And well, the rest, as they say, is just bone-chilling history. Just because this one's a classic, please don't be dumb enough to think that The Exorcist is a cozy watch. Even though the premise is very simple, it's wild, it's raw, and it'll tap into primal fears, making you anxious even in its lighter moments. The Ring, 2002. The Ring is one of those rare horror movies that still makes me jump, even though I've watched it several times. It's easily one of my favorites in the genre, especially as it maintains its grittiness throughout the film. This movie often gets criticized for its slow pace, but is truly a prime example of the deep psychological elements that most horror films miss out on. If you've watched the film, I'm pretty sure the iconic scene of Samara emerging from the TV has never left your head. In The Ring, journalist Rachel Keller investigates her niece's sudden death and learns about a strange videotape that she'd watched with a boyfriend before dying. As Rachel begins watching the tape herself for clues, she begins to experience bizarre coincidences, with objects from the video appearing in her daily life. So, she goes to a remote island to uncover the tape's origins and its disturbing effects. The creators of the tape within the film clearly put in a lot of effort into researching such disturbing imagery. Despite its grainy monochromatic appearance and occasional silliness, by the time you see the entire tape, you'll be undoubtedly hooked on the unsettling nature of the images. If you love subtle, atmospheric, and downright creepy movies, well, The Ring is just the one for you. It's brilliantly understated story moves at a perfect pace, beautifully told with just the right amount of unanswered questions to keep the mystery alive without leaving any glaring plot holes. The Shining, 1980. The scariest scenes in The Shining have become so well known that they most definitely were in a meme template you shared with your friend at some point. Yet, Stanley Kubrick's claustrophobic nightmare continues to terrify us. If you've watched this masterpiece, I'm almost sure that floral wallpaper makes you uneasy to this day, and empty hotels probably induce you with PTSD. For those who missed out on this pop culture gem, next time if you end up in room 273 in an empty hotel covered in snow, you might want to run the other way. In The Shining, Jack Torrance and his family move into the Overlook Hotel for the winter, where he works as the caretaker and tries to finish his novel during his free time. But the hotel is not very fond of its inhabitants and does everything in its power to antagonize them. This movie is actually adapted from a psychological thriller written by Stephen King. Ironically, King hated Kubrick for stripping the story of its supernatural essence, believing that Jack Torrance was reduced to a man who thought too much and felt too little. Many people think that The Shining's exploration of madness and personal failures is what makes it so chilling, but instead, Torrance's torment is rooted in his feelings of inadequacy, amped up by his struggles with alcoholism. The movie simply feels evil, which is probably why it's on our top 5. Kubrick had traumatized his actors so horribly while filming that most of them were forced to take therapy after the shoot. So, if a deranged psychological thriller is something up your alley, you might want to start with this one. The Grudge, 2004. This classic is a horror film to its very core, and it doesn't focus on the deaths but the sheer fear that grips the characters. I mean, yeah, sure, there are a lot of imperfections within the storyline when it comes to actors being set up to go into places no sane person would look at. Still, I loved how Grudge broke the rules. This film completely blew me away, to say the least. It opened my eyes to a whole new level of horror filmmaking, and I have to give credit to Takashi Shimizu for delivering yet another masterpiece. We usually think that once a victim leaves a horror house alive, they also leave the ghosts behind, but The Grudge takes the concept of being haunted to a whole new level. The characters of the film become haunted no matter where they go, and even if the premise delivers a lot of cliches, the surprises still don't fail to scare you. The movie follows an American couple who move to Japan, but things take a terrifying turn when Karen substitutes for Yoko at the social care center and unknowingly enters a cursed house hiding dark secrets. It's a chilling roller coaster that dives deep into your psyche, leaving you with barely a moment to catch your breath. Grudge doesn't rely on any silly gimmick or comedic breaks to lighten the mood. It's just plain horror upon horror, building to a mind-bending climax. So, if you've never seen this movie, my advice is don't watch it to check it off your list, but watch it to truly experience what this hidden gem has to offer. The Conjuring, 2013. Even now, The Conjuring hasn't lost any of its luster because it was never about the scares, but its packed tension and the crazy storyline which draws its inspiration from real-life events. Despite the many sequels and spin-offs that have come after it, none have quite matched the impact of this film. While some horror fans argue that The Conjuring doesn't bring anything new to the table, its success lies in doing everything right within its specific subgenre. The story revolves around paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren in the early 70s, who helped the Perron family deal with terrifying supernatural occurrences inside their Rhode Island home. Director James Wan skillfully builds the nerve of the plot, gradually revealing how the Perron family's idyllic life turns into a nightmare. The slow pacing creates a real sense of dread, making the audience eagerly anticipate the Warrens coming in to save the day. While the movie includes typical haunted house tropes like strange smells and creaky doors, Wan's skillful direction and impressive production design elevate these elements into genuine scares. From mysterious bruises and eerie games of hide-and-seek to truly terrifying moments, The Conjuring beautifully maintains its superior sense of unease until its climactic finale. Tumbat, 2018. Although Bollywood is still decades behind when it comes to this genre, Tumbat seriously puts the Indian horror genre on the map. This movie stands out for its authenticity, and instead of relying on sudden creepy sound effects or overused camera tricks, the director fully places his trust in the strength of the story, which pays off brilliantly. Tumbat alerts us about the consequences of greed and how it can perpetuate through the ages as the sins of a father are passed down to his son. In the 3 chapters of Tumbat, there are no castles or occultists performing exorcisms on a white-eyed monstrous girl. The story revolves around an evil god lurking beneath a crumbling colonial estate, guarding an endless hoard of gold and tempting those driven by greed. The protagonists make a doll out of dough to summon this creature named Hastar, allowing them to have sufficient time to collect the gold coins it produces. However, when they use multiple dolls to distract the deity, it backfires, summoning an equal number of demons instead. While the film's storyline could benefit from some tightening, Tumbat remains a stunning yet terrifying imagery of Vinayak's journey as he makes morally questionable decisions in his quest for respect and wealth in his community. The Thing, 1982. When John Carpenter's remake of The Thing hit screens after the 1951 original, it was dismissed as an alien ripoff that prioritized special effects over its plot. Looking back, it's hard to believe that these critics were so short-sighted to see it that way. Despite its seemingly cheesy title, The Thing remains one of the most thrilling and intense horror films of all time. Set in an Antarctic research station, the story follows R.J. MacReady and his team as they confront a shape-shifting alien creature that infects blood. Yeah, the graphic scenes stick in your mind, but what truly elevates the film is its intense atmosphere of paranoia at the isolated Antarctic Research Center, where an alien infiltrates and manipulates the team, pitting them against each other. Now, 4 decades later, The Thing is rightfully recognized as Carpenter's masterpiece, appreciated for its groundbreaking special effects and gripping paranoia as the infection spreads and the group falls apart. Insidious, 2010. This movie lives up to its title with its fast pacing and constantly evolving plot, never allowing it to become boring or slow. Insidious had me terrified for years, especially with scenes like the fan sequence and that thing pointing at the boy in the corner. These moments really stayed with me, even though I watched a lot of horror films after this one. The story is fantastic, keeping you on edge with its unpredictable scares. Josh Lambert, a teacher, and his wife Renee move into a new home with their 3 children, but one day, their son Dalton falls while exploring the attic and slips into a coma. Despite the doctor's efforts, they can't figure out what's exactly wrong with him. Soon, strange things start happening around the house, and Renee starts seeing ghosts. Convinced the house is haunted, she persuades Josh to move. However, the supernatural disturbances follow them into their new home. Josh initially doubts Renee until his mother Lorraine reveals her own visions of a fiend in Dalton's room. Eventually, they seek help from a medium named Elise Rainier, who explains that Dalton has the ability to astral project, but his spiritual body is trapped in a place called Further. While that's happening, a demon is trying to possess Dalton's empty physical body for nefarious purposes. Even the execution of this classic horror film is brilliant, which is why I think you should probably give it a try. Sinister, 2012. Many consider Sinister to be one of the scariest modern horror films ever made, and for good reason. Ethan Hawke portrays Ellison Oswald, a true crime writer who relocates his family to a house where brutal murders have occurred in the past. Now, why would any guy in the right mind do that? Well, our boy Oswald thought of seeking inspiration for his writing in The Death House, and so, as he begins investigating the murders, he uncovers horrifying secrets along the way. The movie's plot is straightforward, yet it's executed in a way that'll haunt your subconscious for a pretty long time. Just the Super 8 tapes discovered by Hawke's character covering the different murders are unsettling enough to grind your gears. However, it's actually the recurring appearance of the demonic face in each tape that truly terrifies the living shit out of your soul. Hereditary, 2018. We often associate home with a place of comfort and love, but in Hereditary, the idea of a home turns into the darkest horrors lurking beneath the facade of a perfect family life. Hereditary looks into the disruption of family life and the trauma that ensues. Here, Toni Collette portrays Annie, an artist who creates creepy yet realistic dioramas which mirrors the film's theme of a malevolent force toying with human lives. As her family teeters on the edge, a teenage son Peter and unsettling daughter Charlie grow increasingly disturbed. Following a shocking incident, the film takes its jaw-dropping supernatural turn as a mother's grief soon brings in otherworldly elements. Hereditary keeps you on edge throughout the 2-hour runtime, never offering a moment to pause and take a breath. Is it a supernatural thriller or an exploration of grief? Well, these lines blur out as the film progresses. There's an inexplicable unease that permeates through every scene, making you question what's real and what's not. While the film may divide audiences, it's undeniably a powerhouse of modern horror that leaves a lasting impact, especially in its intense third act. What are the reasons behind its potency, you ask? Well, I'm not spoiling that for you.
Mind his head. Please.
Get Out, 2017. The best kind of horror films usually tap into our deepest human fears, which is why Jordan Peele's Get Out stands out as a modern horror gem through and through. We see Chris, a young photographer in his mid-20s, head to rural New York to meet his girlfriend's parents for the first time. Despite being reassured by Rose about her open-minded parents, Chris is understandably nervous, asking if they know he's black. But Rose's dad is an Obama fanatic, so it's a green flag zone, right? Well, we soon find out that Chris isn't just being set up for a case of mild social awkwardness, but it is sent into something much darker. The terror in the film stems from its reflection of society's ongoing issue with racism. By setting the story in isolated suburbs, Jordan Peele flips the horror genre on its head, packing it with powerful social commentary, a chilling atmosphere, and just a touch of dark humor. Jordan Peele doesn't settle for just scaring you for the film's 90-minute run. He pretty much digs into the unsettling realities of identity politics in today's America through his concept of the sunken place, which has become iconic for its reflection of deeper cultural themes. Rec, 2007. This Spanish film is a rare gem often overlooked in the found footage genre. Rec offers a chillingly relevant story about a group of firefighters and a news crew trapped inside a quarantined apartment building. Right from the first 5 minutes of the film, a sense of dread permeates the atmosphere, and as the infected tenants become violent, the film just grips you in a very uncomfortable manner, something that only a few zombie movies manage to do. Rec practically thrusts you directly into the heart of the action, almost as if you're experiencing the terror firsthand. Cornered by crazed infected people in a dilapidated apartment, the movie pumps in a sense of anxiety and claustrophobic tension within its confined setting, delivering gruesome kills and adding a touch of religious horror that intensifies the race toward a breathless finale. Cat People, 1982. The entire idea of horror as a form of political or cultural defiance may have gained prominence in the 1970s, but its roots run much deeper. This remake of Jacques Tourneur's hauntingly beautiful Cat People carries a more understated message as it explores the inherent potency of female sexuality and how the consequences of suppressing such power can manifest with unexpected danger. In Cat People, we see a brother-sister duo who have descended from a long line of animal-human hybrids. And before you jump to any conclusions, let me tell you this one's not your ordinary shape-shifting film. Every time the siblings sleep with a human, they transform into Black Panthers, and in order to get back to their human form, they must kill a human. Now, you might think, Wakanda plot, is this? Well, this absurd horror comes with many more twists. The only way Irene and Paul can stop the transformation is when they have sex with their own kind. But Irene recoils at the thought of incest and falls in love with a local zoo curator instead. While horror films often embrace absurdity, their success hinges on the director's ability to make audiences believe in such improbable scenarios, and Paul Schrader accomplishes this with finesse by establishing clear rules and developing them logically. The Wailing, 2016. South Korean films are no stranger to bumbling cops and bureaucratic hurdles. However, only a few movies navigate the intensity between modern law enforcement and ancient malevolence as skillfully as The Wailing does. The film takes us to a quiet South Korean village that's affected by the spread of a strange illness right after a newcomer arrives. While the police blame it on wild mushrooms, Officer Jong-gu suspects the newcomer and takes it upon himself to uncover this mystery. As he goes to a woman to get some crucial information about this man, Jong-gu slowly creeps into a rabbit hole that consumes his entire life. But things get personal when his daughter falls ill, forcing him to navigate a maze of trust and deception to uncover the truth. Through the film, director Na Hong-jin takes us on an unusual journey where folk horror meets demonic possession and dark comedy. The Wailing unfolds slowly across its detailed 156 minutes, keeping you on the edge as it lulls you with its beauty before leaving you bewildered with its intensity. Us, 2019. Another Jordan Peele gem. Us will leave you absolutely shocked and speechless by the time it ends. In the film, the Wilson family goes on a vacation to Santa Cruz, hoping for a break from their hectic lives. While spending time at the beach with their friends, their young son Jason nearly wanders off, which makes his mother Adelaide become more vigilant. Later that night, the peaceful retreat turns into a nightmare when four mysterious figures dressed in red invade their home. But these are not your ordinary robbers. To their horror, the Wilsons discover that these intruders are doppelgangers of themselves, only with a more twisted and unsettling appearance. Honestly, this one isn't everyone's cup of tea, especially if you're not a critical thinker, but if you pay close attention to every detail, you'll thoroughly enjoy the storyline as Peele cleverly weaves connections throughout the premise, making it a rewarding experience for his attentive viewers.
Oh, Jesus! Go!
VHS, 2012. In this found footage-style film, a group of misfits are hired by an unknown person to break into a remote house in the countryside and find a rare tape. Inside this house, they discover a dead body, a room full of old TVs, and a collection of bizarre footage where each video is weirder than the previous one. VHS isn't a horror flick, it's a horrifying experience that'll have your heart beating out of your chest for 2 whole hours. By presenting a collection of terrifying and realistic horror stories in an anthology format, VHS takes the found footage genre to a whole new level and feels incredibly authentic. In this film, silence is used effectively to create tension and fear, much like how music does in conventional horror flicks. VHS has a unique approach where several short segments contribute to one overarching idea, all connected to a central background story. If you enjoyed movies like Grave Encounters or Wreck, then VHS is definitely a must-watch for you. A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night, 2014. Through this film, Anna Lily Amirpour brings us an authentic point of view with her Iranian romantic vampire thriller that combines elements of spaghetti westerns, graphic novels, and 1950s rebel films. At its core, the film also makes a social statement about Muslim women and uses its black and white aesthetic to create a dreamlike ambience to complement its minimalistic dialogue approach. A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night is set in a fictional Iranian city called Bad City, where the basic principles of humanity have eroded, leaving behind a landscape dominated by money, corruption, extreme misogyny, and a thriving oil industry. The city's oil refineries stand as the only seemingly legitimate and functioning sector in this morally bankrupt urban sprawl. There's a reason why this film has won several awards at independent film festivals, and well, this one might just be the most unpredictable horror film in the list. Halloween, 1978. Halloween turned Star Trek masks into a symbol of terror. John Carpenter crafted a timeless masterpiece by using a blank William Shatner mask for his villain, who haunts babysitters in the fictional town of Haddonfield, Illinois. This film also gave rise to another icon, Jamie Lee Curtis, who didn't just become a scream queen, but also set the standard for all final girls in horror films to come. Sure, the first scene may not make perfect sense, but starting with a child murdering his sister while wearing a clown mask is undeniably scary. If that doesn't scare you, your horror fan credentials might need a serious review. With the gliding camera movements, the hidden shadows, and the relentless presence of a masked Michael Myers as the perfect killer, Carpenter keeps you constantly on edge with its fear-packed exposure and an easy sense of vulnerability. Hellraiser, 1987. Clive Barker's twisted vision brings us this unique Faustian bargain, which involves a cryptic puzzle box, a gruesome resurrection, and the grotesque necessity of consuming human flesh to restore the skin on the revived jaded sensualist Frank's flayed muscle. By solving the puzzle cube, Frank ventures into a world of well-executed cruelty, overseen by Pinhead and his Cenobite cohorts. Hellraiser explores the concept of glamorous sadism, where the pursuit of transcendent pain is both alluring and horrifying at the same time. Hellraiser was committed to embrace the monstrosity behind the fetishistic allure of the Cenobites, which further intertwined with a pervasive sense of unsettling, mind-twisting dread. Amidst the horror, the morally ambiguous dynamics between Frank and his former lover, who's now his brother's wife, resonate deeply, overshadowing the more conventional subplot involving his niece, Kirsty. It's pretty clear that Hellraiser doesn't shy away from exploring the dark aspects of human nature, particularly the controversial connection between sex and death. This bold approach sets it apart as one of the most daring and unsettling horror films of its era, drawing us into a disturbing yet captivating exploration of the human psyche. The film's unrelenting sadism makes it sick and remorseless, but that's not to say it's bad, just innovative. Dark Water, 2002. Dark Water explores the screeching quietness in the new apartment of a recently divorced mother and her 6-year-old daughter, who struggle to navigate the new dynamics of their life. Their realistic interactions involve a lot of silence and minimal activity, which really depicts the isolation of these apartment blocks and how it invokes a sense of fear. You can't help but empathize with their struggles on how both of them are dealing with the aftermath of the divorce. And after it starts raining, water starts seeping through the ceiling, gradually filling the building and creating an uneasy atmosphere that creeps up on you unexpectedly, making your nerves jangle. Even if you anticipate what's coming, the execution is so well done that it doesn't matter because of how horrifyingly well executed the premise is. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, 1974. Some movie titles are often mysterious, gradually revealing their meaning as the story progresses. And then there's Tobe Hooper's intense horror film. There's literally nothing subtle about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre as the film revels in its brutal display of horror. This blunt force of terror is a journey into dark Americana as 5 young people venture into the unknown. What they encounter in a seemingly ordinary house while searching for gas is so horrifying and depraved that it'll give you the shivers, even during a second watch. But the interesting thing about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is how it infuses the plot with its campy sense of humor. There's also very little blood in the film, but it does have a memorable Leatherface character inspired by Ed Gein with his face mask made of human skin, and a death scene involving a hook that'll make you double-check your own body. Eventually, your mind sort of fills in the blanks with the gore to cope with the terrifying screams and eerie soundtrack of the film. This film has spawned many imitations, including a glossy remake produced by Michael Bay, but nothing matches the raw intensity and brutal honesty of its original. Audition, 1999. Audition is a classic bait-and-switch film in the horror genre history. If you didn't know any better about Takashi Miike's deranged style, for a big chunk of Audition, you could mistake it for a calm romantic drama about a widower using a fake casting call to find a new wife. And even if you have dabbled in Miike's work before, Audition might seem like an odd one in his lineup of bloody films like Ichi the Killer and The Happiness of the Katakuris. The first half of the movie is slow, unassuming, and honestly a bit boring. But just as you're almost nodding off, you're shocked out of your socket as needles and piano wire make an appearance, revealing the widower's timid bride-to-be not so timid after all. This plot twist is the very reason why it's a horror classic, and behind its extremely violent ending lies a sharp critique of masculinity and gender roles in Japan. But enough spoilers for now. Next time someone asks for something easy to watch, surprise them with this, and watch their expression change as the movie unfolds. It, 2017. For many of us, Tim Curry will forever be associated with Pennywise, the dancing clown who rose to become a symbol of pure terror amongst children and adults alike. However, in the 2017 adaptation of Stephen King's massive novel, the premise is actually set in the 1980s instead of the 50s, and it's Bill Skarsgård who scares the living shit out of you. Skarsgård's Pennywise has eyes that wander in different directions, creating a truly monstrous and unhinged look. Plus, while he interacts with the children, he constantly drools, as though he's famished and eager to devour both them and their fear. Even the kids in it are amazing actors, which allows the film to avoid any awkward child acting moments. With themes of friendship and the loss of innocence, it might get sentimental during some parts, but the chilling scares serve as a reminder that clowns are terrifying, no matter your age. A Nightmare on Elm Street, 1984. Similar to a dungaree-wearing possessed doll, Freddy Krueger became strongly associated with the killer clown territory as the Nightmare on Elm Street series progressed. Despite his penchant for gory antics, which might include him painting the wall red with your insides, Freddy will still get a hard chuckle out of you. Looking back at Wes Craven's original film, there's a reason why Freddy Krueger evolved as a pop culture icon. We often overlook that the origin of this serial child killer's burns come from him being incinerated by enraged parents, living on through their fear and guilt. In this film, Freddy Krueger becomes the ultimate boogeyman, haunting a new generation of Springwood children in their dreams with his iconic razor-sharp murder glove. The intense fear of Nancy and her friends as they struggle to stay awake to survive is truly scary, as no amount of caffeine or loud music can protect them from the looming danger of the dream world, where a menacing maniac awaits to take their lives. While Johnny Depp's spectacularly gruesome death scene is a standout moment, A Nightmare on Elm Street is arguably one of the best setups in modern horror cinema, with the concept of a monster infiltrating your dreams and attacking your psyche with razor-sharp fingered gloves. Although the franchise later leaned into self-parody, the original film stands out as a daring, innovative, and genuinely terrifying classic with a sense of existential dread and avant-garde horror that remains impactful even today. The Silence of the Lambs, 1991. This classic horror thriller is centered on a young FBI agent pursuing a serial killer named Buffalo Bill, with the help of an incarcerated cannibal named Hannibal Lecter. The Silence of the Lambs is that kind of an award-winning film which opened the doors for audiences less inclined toward horror and pushed them to explore the darker realms of the genre. It gave birth to the theatrical portrayal of the most iconic villain, Hannibal Lecter, alongside Clarice Starling as a strong female lead. The film blends moments of disturbing violence with a gripping procedural narrative, keeping viewers on the edge of their seats. Hannibal Lecter is portrayed as a brilliant and elusive guy, outsmarting those tasked with ensuring public safety. Plus, Buffalo Bill's gross intentions further pumps up the horror, as the characters we root for struggle to avoid becoming his victims. The tension is heightened by a climactic scene in a dark basement, accompanied by the haunting cries of a kidnapped woman, making it one of the most terrifying and cathartic sequences in horror cinema. Alien, 1979. This movie has set a proper standard and tone as a claustrophobic space thriller and jump-started a whole franchise that has a cult following to the present day. Alien is set in the distant future and follows a commercial spaceship called Nostromo. When a member of the crew answers to a distress signal, they come across a bizarre spaceship on a moon that's yet to be discovered. The film's tale of terror further unravels when the crew of the ship discover that an extraterrestrial creature has also boarded their vessel and has been creepily stalking all the members ever since their return. The tension piles up when the crew members try every possible way to figure out how to kill this lethal alien before it can kill them. The movie has an outstanding script, and the special effects really helped it become a timeless space horror masterpiece. Friday the 13th, 1980. The slasher subgenre of horror has been a topic of debate among horror enthusiasts since it gained popularity in the 1970s. When done well with a strong story, effective scares, immersive atmosphere, and memorable scenes, slashers can actually be quite enjoyable, and this particular film ticks all the boxes, which is why it continues to be popular even today. Friday the 13th had revitalized the horror genre in the 80s, introducing audiences to an unforgettable villain and a chilling ending that has become truly iconic. This classic horror movie doesn't aim for glamour or glossiness. Instead, it's focused on making you feel uneasy and scared, while leaving a lingering discomfort long after watching it. The story begins at Camp Crystal Lake, where a group of young American counselors find themselves in peril. Basically, anyone who has sex before marriage dies. Friday the 13th presents a diverse range of relatable characters, each facing a terrifying fate as they're systematically hunted down in claustrophobic scenarios, reminiscent of the fear instilled by Psycho's iconic shower scene. The tension builds steadily as the body count rises, amplified by an eerie soundtrack that enhances the film's overall sense of dread and suspense. Jeepers Creepers, 2001. During their spring break journey, Darry and Patricia Jenner stumble upon a stranger dumping something down a tunnel. When a curious Darry investigates the tunnel, he finds a horrifying hideout filled with altered bodies. The siblings then seek assistance, unaware that the perpetrator is now aware of their presence. As they dig deeper, they realize the pursuer is something far more terrifying, with sinister plans beyond their imagination. Although the film sets out to generate unhinged intensity, uncertainty, and a sense of foreboding, Jeepers Creepers' standout feature is the character of the creeper itself. While it doesn't sustain the same level of suspense seen in the initial 45 minutes, the movie's 90-minute runtime still manages to deliver adrenaline-pumping shocks and scares, culminating in a chilling ending. The Omen, 1976. This Richard Donner film was a massive hit when it debuted and amplified the wave of satanic panic during the 70s and 80s. It even led some parents to search the children's hair for any signs of the devil's mark and made it impossible for anyone named Damien to go on about the business without raising a few eyebrows. At the 6th hour of the 6th day of the 6th month, a certain baby was born who would go on to change the world forever. In Omen, Damien is seen as the embodiment of ultimate evil, as the direct descendant of Satan, determined to bring chaos into the lives of his adoptive parents, the Thorns, and everyone in their circle. The Omen is a prime example of high-quality horror filmmaking. But fear not, horror enthusiasts, there's also plenty of shock and campiness for you to enjoy. As Damien executes his sinister plans, the film delivers a barrage of grotesque deaths, including hangings, shootings, decapitations, defenestrations, impalements, attack by Rottweilers, and of course the ominous presence of an evil nanny. But what truly instilled fear in us was the feeling of inevitability that permeates the terrifying demise of the characters, because if Damien has marked you, escaping your fate is nearly impossible. Gonjiam, Haunted Asylum, 2018. If you're looking for a scare without the gore, consider exploring the Gonjiam Psychiatric Hospital, an abandoned asylum near Seoul, Korea, renowned as one of the country's most haunted sites. It's the stuff of legends that draws a group of YouTubers for a live broadcast. Director Jung Boom-shik combines fiction and reality to create a chilling experience that ranks among the most intense haunted house encounters. I think Gonjiam Haunted Asylum, as a found footage horror film, stands out for allowing its viewers to engage with the movie without the usual concerns associated with the genre. The isolated setting, the almost brutalist style architecture of the institution, and the meticulous set decoration overall helps to build a strong atmosphere from the beginning. The deep shadows that pervade every scene really taps into our primal fears and puts us right in the facility alongside the characters. Gonjiam thrives on an aura of deep unease, maintaining a sense of dread for a significant portion of its runtime. Pet Cemetery, 1989. So, a doctor and his family relocate to a new home near a bustling highway. When their family cat dies tragically in an unforeseen accident, a neighbor reveals a startling secret about a nearby sacred Indian burial ground known for bringing buried pets back to life. Naturally, the doctor wonders if these mystical powers extend to humans as well. If you've seen Pet Cemetery, you have to admit that the story was undeniably abnormal, even by Mr. King standards. I think the revelation of one of the main characters being a 3-year-old knife-wielding murderer is shocking enough. However, it was also interesting to see King make a cameo as the minister at Gage's burial, which isn't something you get to see in other Stephen King films. While Pet Sematary may not be the most flawless King adaptation, it manages to capture many moments of deep-seated unease straight from the pages of the book, making its shortcomings forgivable. Poltergeist, 1982. Are funfair haunted houses still around, or have they become obsolete in a world obsessed with torture porn and human centipedes? Regardless, they provide a fitting analogy for Poltergeist. This film pulls you in, playfully surprises you for 2 hours straight, and then leaves you trembling yet satisfied. It's about a young family that experiences strange occurrences in the home when ghosts make their presence known. Initially friendly, these spectral visitors amuse everyone by moving objects around the house. However, their demeanor takes a dark turn as they begin to terrorize the family and end up kidnapping their youngest daughter. While there are some unsettling moments like face rips and pop-up corpses, the overall effect is more exhilarating and enjoyable than many modern horror films. But still, the lingering question about the film remains: who was truly responsible for its creation? The credited director Tobe Hooper, or the producer Steven Spielberg, whose close involvement sparked debate among observers. While Poltergeist undeniably carries Spielberg's signature style with its suburban angst and ethereal lighting, it also exhibits Hooper's distinct ferocity at times. Scream, 1996. By the late 90s, the horror genre was kinda getting stagnant as the masked slasher archetype seemed to be dragging along, desperately in need of a jolt of energy. What it received, however, was Wes Craven's Scream. This film, although later parodied to levels of postmodern irony akin to Inception, injected new life into the genre with its expert balance of self-aware humor and genuine scares. 25 years and 4 sequels later, it's easy to overlook the impact that Scream had when Ghostface burst slashed onto the screen and allowed Wes Craven to turn the slasher genre on its head, starting with a subtle homage to Psycho and then deconstructing and subverting everything that followed. Despite everything, Scream is genuinely terrifying in the form of a bloody Agatha Christie-style mystery where the character's awareness of the horror tropes offer very little protection once the knives come out. Although the iconic Scream mask, inspired by Munch's painting, may have been humorously twisted in Scary Movie, it still retains its ability to get your hearts pumping. What sets Scream apart is its unpredictability in the gore, as victims meet the demise at the slasher's knife with a disturbing frequency. Rosemary's Baby, 1968. Moving into a new apartment and starting a family is challenging enough without the added suspicion that your neighbors might just be Satanists who are hell-bent on using you to parent a demon child. Polanski's approach in Rosemary's Baby is intelligent and subtle, as he keeps the specifics to a bare minimum and leaves us guessing on the extent of what's happening, blurring the lines between reality and the perception of Mia Farrow's character as she begins to believe she's been impregnated by the wealthy Manhattanites with a mysterious connection to the occult. The film includes some crucial scenes, such as a disturbing nighttime encounter and a chilling climax that can effectively unsettle you without detracting from the seriousness of the premise. Overall, this faux naive score, reminiscent of lullabies, creates a profoundly creepy atmosphere throughout the film. Psycho, 1960. Alfred Hitchcock's groundbreaking classic, Psycho is now over 60 years old and continues to deliver that original kick a horror cinema demands. In Psycho, we follow Marion Crane as she flees after stealing a large sum of money from her employer, ultimately arriving at a motel managed by the seemingly ordinary Norman Bates and his overbearing mother. What follows is a gripping tale of identity and murder, featuring some of the most iconic sequences in cinematic history, all captured in beautiful black and white under Hitchcock's masterful direction. For me, I found the film's iconic shower scene to be scariest. Alfred Hitchcock, as the master of suspense, expertly injects the arc with perceptible anxiety in a way that seems effortless but is actually a true example of his genius mind. The film's voyeuristic elements play out for both Norman and the audience, creating a sense of impending doom. Plus, the appalling moments of frenzied stabbing, without giving away spoilers, are enough to send shivers down your spine, especially during that iconic scene. Jaws, 1975. Jaws is a timeless classic directed by Steven Spielberg that masterfully balances suspense, human drama, and adventure, leaving an indelible mark on cinematic history. The story unfolds in a beautiful summer resort named Amity Island, where a young woman's remains are discovered on the shore after her brutal late-night encounter with an unseen force. While Police Chief Martin Brody grapples with the reality of a potential shark attack, he's countered by Mayor Larry Vaughn, who fears the consequences of economic repercussions if the beaches are closed. After a young boy falls prey to the same predator, Brody, oceanographer Matt Hooper, and a mysterious shark hunter named Quint form an unlikely alliance to go on a perilous quest to rid Amity Island of the relentless menace. Now, it should definitely be noted that the shark's attacks, captured through Spielberg's innovative Shark Eye View camera work, convey the predator's lethal power and amplify the terror of the open sea. Throughout Jaws, the ocean transforms from a serene playground into a realm of impending doom, painting a haunting picture of the depths below. As the hunt for a great white shark intensifies, the trio provides us with moments of unforeseen emotional depth with the camaraderie. Cure, 1997. This is definitely one of the most eccentric Japanese films I've seen, as it rolls out a mix of horror and crime into an unusual cinematic experience. Even if it appeals to fans from both genres, it's important to note that Cure is exceptionally unconventional and occasionally ambiguous, so it's best suited for you only if you have a high tolerance for such distinctive storytelling. It revolves around a sick freak who spent many years investigating an ancient and obscure form of hypnosis that allows him to manipulate people into committing heinous acts against their own wills and morals. He orchestrates brutal murders for his own twisted amusement, leaving the police puzzled by the seemingly senseless crimes. When the culprit's eventually apprehended midway through the film, it transitions into a strange and occasionally surreal journey into his disturbed psyche. While the ending may be somewhat ambiguous, the film as a whole is quite thought-provoking and leaves a lasting impact on you, if you have the patience to stick it out. Funny Games, 1997. Michael Haneke's original Funny Games, while not fitting neatly into the conventional horror genre, stands out as one of the most chilling non-horror films ever made, as it pushes your boundaries and challenges your level of tolerance. In this psychological thriller, two young men take a family hostage in the lakeside vacation home, subjecting them to brutal abuse and forcing them to participate in sadistic games for their twisted pleasure. Paul and Peter, the psychotic duo in Funny Games, frequently break the fourth wall by directly engaging with the audience. They taunt viewers, posing moral questions that make them feel implicated simply by witnessing the torture unfolding on screen. This is exactly what intensifies the viewing experience, making it more difficult to process. Noroi, The Curse, 2005. Unlike the usual gore fests, Noroi thrives on an intriguing concept as the story revolves around journalist Masafumi Kobayashi, who investigates the legend of a demonic entity named Kagutaba. Through a compilation of video clips, the film weaves a haunting story that feels disturbingly real. Imagine the Blair Witch Project, but in the form of a complicated puzzle. While both share the documentary style, Noroi takes it further by linking events through different sources. An innocuous shot of a house exterior, a peculiar occurrence on a porch. These seemingly unrelated moments converge to create a spine-chilling connection that leaves you mentally connecting the dots. Kobayashi's journey leads him to bizarre characters and strange incidents related to a child psychic's mysterious disappearance, a woman with unsettling psychic abilities, and a man obsessed with pigeons, all of which intertwine to form a web of terror. But what truly sets Noroi apart is its long, suspenseful finale. The movie doesn't settle for one climax. It delivers a series of heart-pounding moments that culminate in one big final scare that's etched in horror history. It's a gut-wrenching twist that lingers long after the credits roll. The film's gritty cinematography really makes you feel like a hidden observer in this nightmarish world. Perfect Blue, 1997. Perfect Blue navigates multiple layers of reality, fiction, dreams, and delusions, creating a complex yet stunning viewing experience. In this film, Mima, a budding pop star, is poised for stardom but yearns for something more. So, with the guidance of her management team, she plans to transition from a pop singer to an actress, and that's exactly how the issue begins. Is there a doppelganger of Mima lurking in the shadows? This unknown person who looks like Mima is still a prominent pop star, but is adamantly rejecting her new acting career, and is seen to wear an eternal smile that conceals potential darkness. So, could she be a ruthless killer? As the madness intertwines with nightmares, the boundaries blur between reality and the surreal script of Mima's increasingly bizarre acting debut. Days repeat themselves, mirroring the script, while life imitates art, and vice versa. Are these repeated patterns a sign of reality crumbling into dreams? And while that's going on, who's targeting those closest to Mima, leaving a trail of death in their wake? Although Perfect Blue may leave you scratching your head, I think that in an era dominated by straightforward films, a touch of bewilderment can be refreshing. The Wicker Man, 1973. Even after 50 years, Robin Hardy's seminal folk horror remains as hauntingly relevant as ever. The creation of this cinematic masterpiece demanded its own sacrifices, and despite tolerating a difficult journey to the screen, The Wicker Man really breaks through Edward Woodward's Odyssey to Summerisle. But what really makes The Wicker Man timeless is its terrifyingly straightforward plot where a policeman investigates a missing girl on an island, only to uncover a web of deceit and horror. And believe me when I tell you that its impact leaves an impression for quite a long time. I know that the entire concept of humans being the true monsters is pretty overdone in horror, yet this one remains relevant to its very core. While the inhabitants of Summerisle may have their moments of levity, The Wicker Man is a stark reminder of the fragility of trust. Because can we really believe what others say? How do we find solace in a world filled with human complexities? Woodward's journey into a completely different world with its own customs and beliefs somehow amplifies the fear of the unknown. And if you've not watched this one yet, well, I think you should look out for the main reveal at its end. Carrie, 1976. Sissy Spacek might not have been the top pick for the role of creepy Carrie. Now it's simply impossible to picture anyone else who could do justice to this iconic role. Stephen King's inspiration for his debut novel, Carrie, came from his time working as a caretaker at a college, where he got the idea while being inside the girls' locker room. I mean, teenage girls are easily some of the meanest kind to exist, and a lot of things can go down in high school locker rooms. So that's where we meet Carrie. After experiencing her first period, Carrie gets bullied by the mean girls of her school who tell her to plug it up. But little do they know, Carrie has telekinetic powers to help her case. And let's just say, she gives them a prom of a lifetime. The scene with the pig's blood is one of those moments that always makes you hold your breath, no matter how many times you see it. Plus, Sissy Spacek was brave enough to volunteer for real pig's blood, but still, they ended up using a syrup and food coloring mix for the iconic drenching scene. 28 Days Later, 2002. This famous post-apocalyptic British horror has Cillian Murphy as its protagonist, and for some of you, that's reason enough to give this one a try. The plot of this zombie thriller revolves around Great Britain being infected by an aggressive and highly contagious virus known as rage. As a result of a lab experiment gone wrong, the entire epidemic causes a societal collapse, as rage is not your usual zombie infection. This one spread by mere contact, and even a drop of blood. The story involves Jim, Selena, Mark, Frank, and Hannah, who are a group of survivors trying to make their way to safety in this dystopian land where every breathing hour risks them to this raging infection. But the film takes a darker turn when they're betrayed by a broadcast that promised survivors a safe place from the aggression-driven zombies. The movie reinvigorates the storytelling arc subjected to any generic zombie movie. The constant paranoia of being infected, the emotions in saving your affected loved ones by killing them to save them from the suffering, and the hopelessness of being stranded in a world full of rage-driven mindless beings where every day is more difficult than the other. 28 Days Later is a critically acclaimed commercial success for a reason. Uzumaki, 2000. In this manga-adapted horror film, things take a bizarre turn when the people of a quaint island town start fixating on spirals. The first one to notice this unusual behavior is Kiri, who catches her boyfriend's father filming a snail, completely lost in his own world. Soon, others in the community also start getting obsessed with spirals, and things get out of hand when a boy tragically jumps off a spiral staircase while swimming strangely. Then, one day, Kiri's boyfriend's father starts collecting everything spiral and throws a tantrum when there are no spiral fish cakes left for dinner. The situation gets even weirder and very literally spirals out of control when he spins himself to death in a washing machine. And then, slowly, the mystery of Uzumaki begins to unfold. Don't worry too much about untangling all its mysteries. Just sit back and enjoy the ride. The movie drops hints about ancient cults, stormy legends, and strange artifacts, while leaving a lot open to interpretation, and that's part of the fun. The visuals are where this film shines, with bodies twisting into circles, hair spiraling in impossible ways, and eyes spinning like whirlpools. It's like a Lovecraftian comedy, colorful and exaggerated yet unsettling. So, if you're up for a wild and weird experience without sweating the small plot details, Uzumaki might just be your cup of tea. The Amityville Horror, 1979. Before Insidious and The Conjuring, there was the Amityville Horror. This classic horror tale follows a family who moves into a stunning home in New York, only to discover that its previous owners were brutally murdered there. As spooky occurrences start happening, they bring in an exorcist to deal with the ghostly problems. The horror flick takes a spin on the infamous Lutz family's brief stay at 112 Ocean Avenue, where a tragic mass murder had occurred in real life. While it may not stick to every detail, it sure knows how to send shivers down your spine. From walls oozing blood to the creepy glow of a possessed pet's eyes, and the once loving, now possessed husband turning into a murderous threat to his own family. This classic knows how to dial up the scare factor. The Exorcism of Emily Rose, 2005. Back in 2005, just when exorcism movies seemed like old news, The Exorcism of Emily Rose shook things up with its fiery blend of supernatural horror and courtroom drama. With a top-notch cast, this film just keeps you guessing. It follows an attorney defending a priest accused of killing a college student during an exorcism. As The Exorcism of Emily Rose zooms in on a seemingly simple homicide case, it quickly turns into a complex examination of faith and the human mind. With flashbacks that fill in the backstory, the movie explores the beliefs of different characters, from strong believers to atheists. Plus, Jennifer Carpenter's Emily is both haunting and moving, making your skin crawl while seeing her antics in that creepy farmhouse setting. The Descent, 2005. If you ever wondered why people might hesitate before joining a caving trip, Neil Marshall's intense creature feature might have something to do with it. Sarah's friends think a caving adventure will help her heal after a family tragedy, but as the group goes underground, things take a shocking turn. This isn't your typical heartwarming story of cathartic grief. It's very literally a descent into darkness that grips you from the start and doesn't let go until the very end. Neil Marshall could have just kept The Descent focused on the survivalist suspense, and it still would have been a hit, but he went in deeper to throw some monster movie horror in the mix, making it even more intense. As Sarah and her friends are stuck in a collapsing cave system, it creates a seriously claustrophobic experience that keeps you on the edge. When the monsters finally appear in The Descent, they're the stuff of nightmares, pale, blind, and hungry for flesh. It's one of those epic jump scares that make you remember why you love horror movies, making you breathless just by watching these women breathe through the rubble. Final Destination, 2000. James Wong's supernatural horror classic Final Destination shook up the entire horror community by implying that the scariest threats aren't always the ones we can see. Instead of masked killers or haunted houses, it tapped into real-life fears and the idea of fate. The concept stemmed from a real story about someone avoiding a tragic event due to a premonition, adding a layer of unsettling realism to the film's premise. From there, the series built on a simple yet gripping formula as characters try to dodge death but eventually realize it's not so easy to escape fate's grip. In In the film, Alex has a vision of a plane crash during a school trip to Paris, and when they narrowly avoid the disaster, death starts playing its deadly game. The Final Destination series took everyday things and turned them into threats, showing that even if you escape one danger, there are plenty more waiting around the corner to get you. The Autopsy of Jane Doe, 2016. What if a haunted house could move with you? While this concept is in many other famous films, The Autopsy of Jane Doe takes it to a whole new level. As a vengeful spirit is trapped within an unidentified body, wherever Jane Doe goes, she brings terror with her, turning any place into a nightmare. In this case, a local morgue becomes the epicenter of paranormal activity, haunting a coroner team of a father and son. Their investigation takes a chilling turn as they encounter supernatural occurrences linked to the girl's demise. Simply put, The Autopsy of Jane Doe is seriously creepy, as Andre Ovredal's Hollywood directorial debut doubles with well-crafted scares and unexpected twists to pack a supernatural punch. The House is October Built, 2014. The House is October Built initially presents itself as a documentary, only to swiftly diverge from that facade, leaving you in for an unexpected roller coaster of chills. The film introduces a group of friends exploring America's most terrifying haunted houses just days before Halloween. They aim to document their experiences, but as they dig deeper, they learn of many unsettling criminal practices. Although their journey takes them through a series of well-known haunted houses, their main focus is locating a blue skeleton, an extreme haunt known for its ever-changing secret locations and reputation for employing real torture to invoke terror. The House's October Built takes you into the disturbing underbelly of haunted house attractions, exploiting the fears and vulnerabilities of both the characters and the audience. With its unconventional approach, the movie really leaves you questioning the boundaries between entertainment and genuine terror. Pearl, 2022. Set in 1918. This movie is about Pearl, who lives on a farm with her overbearing mother and father confined to a wheelchair, while her husband Howard is away fighting in the war. Pearl pines for a life beyond the farm, dreaming about becoming a famous dancer. However, her aspirations seem far-fetched, given she has no talent and is mentally unstable. Pearl is a character filled with complexities, acutely aware of her own differences from others. She yearns to belong, to be cherished, and to live the idyllic life she sees around her. However, her struggles with mental instability, anger, and violent tendencies make this dream elusive. Despite her mother's efforts to restrain her, Pearl's inner turmoil eventually leads to inevitable and uncontrollable outcomes. Pearl isn't your typical horror movie, although it does contain elements of horror with its blood-oozing events. While the film may not appeal to everyone, I still think it's one of the most beautiful character studies out there, at least through a psychological horror point of view. Taxidermia, 2006. Georgie Palfy's second feature film, Taxidermia, offers an astonishing experience that I'd highly recommend to anyone seeking to push the boundaries through the darkness of this genre. The film blends dark comedy with its stomach-churning scenes by depicting 3 generations of a single family. Taxidermia shows us their twisted and perverse lifestyles, including themes of masturbation, gluttony, defamation, dismemberment, and taxidermy. So, you might want to avoid eating anything while watching this one. Nonetheless, Palfy's directorial approach beautifully presents this deviant world in a reflective manner, holding a mirror to our own realities. While some may find Taxidermia gory and eccentric, it still never resorts to the gratuitous sensationalism often seen in contemporary European films. In fact, we see the glimpse of a society where defects, sleaze, and dishonesty are used to achieve personal ambitions or goals, regardless of the twisted or harmful consequences. This one's a scary ride to the darkest corners of the human mind, where you closely examine some of the ugliest aspects of human nature and the lengths individuals will go in pursuit of their desires. The Cabin in the Woods, 2011. In 2011, the horror genre seemed to be at a self-referential impasse, with movies like Scream 4 poking fun at the cliches and tropes until they practically crumble. Yet, just when we thought we'd seen it all, along came The Cabin in the Woods, armed with a meta approach that takes aim at every horror trope with its pinpoint accuracy. As a group of typical 20-somethings head to the eponymous cabin, they quickly realize that the weekend getaway is about to veer into an unexpected and terrifying territory. The Cabin in the Woods is far more than a mere comedic romp, and I won't spoil anything for you because it's just that good. But much like the ever-shifting monster in It, this film exploits a plethora of fears. It's a creature feature extravaganza, overflowing with gore and a menagerie of monsters lurking in the shadows. Much like Buffy's knack for blending humor and horror, this movie's a roller coaster that'll have you laughing one moment and screaming the next.
Who are you? How come you're in here?
Grave Encounters, 2011. Grave Encounters isn't your run-of-the-mill horror flick. This found footage film really takes you on a supernatural roller coaster, following a TV crew led by ghost hunter Lance Preston, who decides to explore the Collingwood Psychiatric Hospital. Rumors always swirl around this place about unexplained phenomena, twisted experiments, and a chilling history. As you'd expect, things start slow with some bumps and creaks, but then doors slam shut, air defies gravity, and the chilling reality sets in wherein the ghost hunters become the hunted. You'd think it's your typical people locked in a haunted house, but in reality, Grave Encounter serves up surprises like a mystery box. The crew faces an ever-changing maze where daylight and darkness blur, and the asylum itself seems sentient. As the hospital becomes a mind-bending nightmare, the group descends into the chaos of dark corridors and flickering lights. By the end, the hospital becomes a grotesque playground, leaving the once skeptical ghost hunters grappling with their own beliefs as they fight to escape the labyrinthine horror. Books of Blood, 2020. I think I have a soft spot for horror anthologies, even the cheesy ones, and this one walks on a fine line. It starts with 3 stories that seem a bit bland at first, but as they unfold, the insanity levels ramp up to unsettling heights. The film weaves together 3 interconnected stories that culminate in a surprising twist by the end. Initially, we sympathize with a girl dealing with mental illness and being neglected by her selfish parents. So, her escape brings us a sense of relief, leading us into the next 2 stories where we find satisfaction in seeing characters receive their due. It's the final reveal that uncovers the girl's true nature, and well, let's just say the rest is history. Although this one receives a bonus point for perfecting the mixing of human monsters with ghostly ones, what I appreciate most is the minimal use of CGI, great cinematography, and solid editing that sent shivers down my spine. Knowing that the film is based on Clive Barker's work, this dark, poetic nightmare feels straight out of the 80s.
Something.
Candyman, 1992. Candyman has earned a lot of fame over the years for its fitting dark story revolving around whispered urban myths, featuring Virginia Madsen as a skeptical white scholar investigating the urban legends of a vengeful ghost with a hook for a hand. Accompanied by a haunting, piano-driven score, Candyman remains a remarkably relevant film, skillfully intertwining visceral horror with themes of gentrification, white privilege, and racial violence in Chicago's black community. Candyman doesn't shy away from delivering intense terror, gore, jump scares, and an atmosphere of grim relentlessness that keeps even the most seasoned horror fans on edge. House, 1977. Nobuhiko Obayashi's debut film is a wild ride of surrealism and absurdity, complete with a high body count. With elements like disembodied floating heads and a fluffy white witch cat, it defies explanation, simply because words can't do it justice. It's the kind of film that you simply have to experience firsthand to fully grasp its madness. The film portrays O'Shea, who's thrilled about her upcoming summer vacation with her father. But she's not happy when his girlfriend crashes their trip, so O'Shea opts to spend her vacation at her aunt's house in the countryside and brings along her eccentric group of friends from school. Little does the group know that the house they're heading to is haunted. As they arrive, bizarre events unfold, and the girls vanish one by one. Director Obayashi steals the show with his unparalleled blend of drug-induced madness that cult cinema enthusiasts can only fantasize about. Once the supernatural disturbances kick in, they don't let up, and Obayashi treats us to an unrelenting ride filled with crude and hilariously absurd special effects. Incantation, 2022. If you have trypophobia, you might want to steer clear of this film. Incantation talks about Ronan, who's now ready to be reunited with her daughter Dodo, who was growing up in a foster home while her mother was away in a mental institution. However, after meeting her mother, Dodo starts acting weird and begins to see invisible entities. Ronan soon discovers that these paranormal occurrences are tied to events from 6 years ago. The film employs a found footage style horror, using home videos and security camera footage to weave together a beautifully haunting plot that jumps back and forth in time. The presence of a vulnerable child in danger only escalated the sense of danger in the film, with Ronan breaking a fourth wall, leading the audience to chant an incantation along with her to save her child. The climax of Incantation is set within a cursed tomb, serving as a haunting finale to this unsettling journey. Midsommar, 2019. I think the best way to describe Midsommar would either be a perverted version of The Wizard of Oz, or perhaps The Wicker Man on psychedelic drugs. However, beyond its theme of gruesome horror, Midsommar explores many complex ideas and emotions that go beyond just gore and shock. While keeping dark humor in the mix, the film deals with the consequences of American arrogance in a foreign setting. At first, you might think it's just another breakup story with feminist undertones, but as the film begins exploring the clash between contemporary values and ancient customs, the real horror comes to light. Florence Florence Pugh in Midsommar is emotionally rich, capturing grief, confusion, heartbreak, rage, and hope. Amidst all this, horror unfolds in daylight, shaping the twisted narrative toward its intense and fiery resolution. Midsommar's ending might come off as empowering, particularly for women, yet the overall experience is deeply disturbing, even for seasoned horror enthusiasts. This film stands out by deviating from typical horror tropes, and instead of relying on dim lighting like your typical horror film, it uses a hazy, glowing aesthetic to create a false sense of security in order to leave a lasting imprint of discomfort. The Hills Have Eyes, 2006. While the older version of this film is most definitely a horror classic, its more recent remake is 10 times more brutal and impactful, thus making this one the better version. The Hills Have Eyes follows a family going to California for an event, but soon they land in the middle of their worst nightmares as they're caught by mutated cannibals. This movie has graphic animal abuse, sexual assault, and other repulsive themes which are pretty hard to take in. Hills Have Eyes will make you want to pull your eyes out of your sockets and imbue you with a sense of trauma at the sheer thought of a road trip. So, if you ever give this one a chance, you might just be setting yourself up for a traumatizing experience. Salem's Lot, 1979. Salem's Lot takes place in a small secluded town called Jerusalem's Lot, which is referred to as Salem's Lot by the locals. Here, everyone's business is everyone else's gossip, and secrets aren't really meant to be a secret. When two strangers arrive and a young boy disappears, the town's inherent distrust of outsiders feels justified. It's a tale of a small town dealing with its own issues, with a vampire thrown into the mix. When the vampire finally shows up, it's both scary and thrilling. But by then, the fear and suspicion have already taken its toll on the town, because the unknown is the scariest thing of all. As far as vampire films go, this one's equally terrifying and disgusting. Suspiria, 1977. Dario Argento's Suspiria is less of a typical movie and more like a full-on assault on your senses. It follows Susie, a young dancer who arrives at a prestigious ballet school and ignores the warnings of a girl running for her life, only to find herself in the middle of horrific murders targeting young women at the school. Despite being censored for its violent content, Suspiria remains a strong cut above its remake and was a controversial film caught in the crossfire of the video nasty panic of the 1980s. It's really not that hard to see why, because Suspiria isn't an easy watch in any way. Every color in the film seems to shout at your eyes. Each murder is shown in excruciating detail from unsettling angles, and the soundtrack feels like something from a nightmare playlist. It's depraved, stylish, and oddly beautiful, making it an unforgettable experience. You might not enjoy it, but Suspiria will sure make every hair on your body stand in fear. The Visit, 2015. Tyler and Becca have never met their estranged grandparents, but when the grandparents reach out, the mother allows them to visit them for the first time while she goes away on vacation. The kids are super excited and Becca decides to shoot a documentary about their days with their grandparents, who live on a remote farm with limited internet and no cell service. At first, everything seems normal with the old couple, but soon the kids realize that something's not right, especially with Nana. Even though they stay in constant touch with their mother, their Nana avoids any form of conversation about her. When the kids start to hear strange noises and get curious about the family estrangement, things start to get dangerously strange. If you enjoy found footage films, The Visit is definitely worth watching for its creepy vibes. It's filmed in a way that won't make you dizzy or sick, as you can eventually see everything clearly on the screen, which is a refreshing change. 1922, 2017. Set in the year 1922, this Zach Hilditch movie is based on a Stephen King novel where a farmer from Nebraska talks his son into helping him murder his wife. The wife is hell-bent on selling the farm and moving to the city, and he's not happy about it. But as luck would have it, things don't go as planned, and the consequences of his actions come to bite him back in the ass. The movie feels a bit like those old crime shows you might hear on the radio in the 1940s, and tries to retain the same gloominess from the original story. The farmer is plagued by creepy rats, very literally, and that's possibly the most interesting part of the film. 1922 is a dark and bloody tale where none of the characters are very likable or easy to care about, and leaves you screeching your teeth by the end. Pulse, 2001. Kiyoshi Kurosawa's Pulse is like a philosophical warning wrapped in dystopian science fiction and supernatural horror. It talks about a world where everyone's glued to the internet and people don't talk face-to-face anymore, preferring chatting online. This change has made people feel really lonely and disconnected from each other. It's like saying spending too much time online can make us forget how to connect with others in real life. Imagine ghosts that don't haunt houses but websites instead and spread like a virus online. People who can't resist the temptation of mysterious messages eventually start ignoring their friends and family. They withdraw from everything, feeling tired, sad, and eventually even think about ending their own lives. This film's unhinged and original to its very core. Wrong Turn, 2003. In Wrong Turn, a group of 6 people in 2 cars take a wrong turn while driving through the backwoods of West Virginia. One car gets stuck on barbed wire, leaving them stranded in a remote area without cell phone reception or any nearby help. Some decide to go back on foot to look for help, while others stay behind with the cars. Unfortunately, this is where they encounter a group of violent mountain men who begin a terrifying killing spree. The movie's most intense and chilling moments unfold as the group tries to survive this unexpected nightmare. Wrong Turn is raw, vicious, brutal, and a shit ton of fun, but the film might just make you rethink ever taking an initiative for going on a camping trip. Dawn of the Dead, 1978. After initially hesitating to create a sequel to his groundbreaking film Night of the Living Dead, George Romero eventually took the plunge. This decision came after his deeply personal project Martin didn't perform well at the box office. Surprisingly, the sequel turned out to be a career-reviving success for Romero, even though his later zombie movies didn't quite live up to the original's impact. While Night of the Living Dead revolutionized horror, George Romero's most memorable work is arguably his wildest and most thrilling zombie movie. It set the standard for socially conscious and politically relevant horror films. Romero's impact can be seen in countless zombie movies that followed, as well as in TV shows like The Walking Dead. Even today, it stands as a nearly perfect example of intense and action-packed violence. The Blair Witch Project, 1999. Have you ever noticed how camping in the woods isn't as popular anymore? It's not just because millennials are glued to the phones. It's also because many of us grew up watching The Blair Witch Project as teenagers, and now we prefer sleeping indoors. This famous found footage horror film tells the story of 3 young documentary makers as they travel to Burkittsville, Maryland. They begin by interviewing locals about the chilling legend of the Blair Witch, hoping it's just a scary story. However, as they venture into the woods where the witch is said to live, let's just say there's no happy ending in sight. The Blair Witch Project sparked a renewed interest in the found footage genre, with its marketing even suggesting it was a real event. Every shaky camera shot, every scream, and every strange stick figure found by the characters serves to convince your brain this was in fact a real journey into the woods with no return. Dabbe, The Possession, 2013. This is not the movie that you want to watch alone or at night. If you're familiar with the Dabbe series, you know how this Turkish film holds the potential to give you many sleepless nights. Dabbe, The Possession stands out as a top-notch found footage film, trumping any other entry in the series and earning a spot as one of the best horror films of its kind. Even if it's not a gore-filled film, it's still undeniably unsettling. The concept of jinn that runs through the movie is captivating, especially in an industry saturated with paranormal and satanic themes. It's refreshing to see a possession story rooted in Islamic and shamanistic beliefs rather than the usual Christian framework. Jinn, often known as genies in Western culture, bring a unique twist to the premise as they're known for their trickery and can inhabit anything from a grain of sand to a tree bark, unlike Western demons that typically possess only humans or specific animals. The Taking of Deborah Logan, 2014. The Taking of Deborah Logan takes a fresh spin on the possession genre, where a college film crew documents Deborah Logan, an elderly woman suffering from Alzheimer's disease. Initially, the group captures the gradual decline of Deborah's mental state through her confusion and forgetfulness as symptoms of Alzheimer's. However, as they continue filming, Deborah's actions take on a disturbing and increasingly bizarre quality that goes beyond the typical symptoms of her condition. The crew starts recording strange audios as Deborah starts speaking in French and discussing sacrifices and snakes. As Deborah's behavior becomes more extreme, the group slowly uncover the depths of the ancient evil that they're dealing with. What sets The Taking of Deborah Logan apart is its approach to possession. Instead of relying on typical possession tropes, the film prompts its viewer to question who, why, and how to stop the sinister force. The found footage style of filming adds a sense of realism, while Deborah struggles with Alzheimer's adds a unique layer of horror, making her actions all the more unsettling. Children of the Corn, 1984. Children of the Corn is a 1984 movie adapted from Stephen King's short story. It follows a couple who visit Gatlin, Nebraska, only to stumble upon a terrifying situation. They're pursued by a cult of children led by their crazy preacher, Isaac, who teaches them that everyone over 18 must be killed. This film keeps you on the edge of your seat throughout, as there are plenty of surprises, cringes, and scares. Even though he who walks behind the rose remains unseen the entire time, you can still sense its presence. Just the idea of it lurking in the cornfield is enough to give you chills, and it's not as scary as it is psychologically troubling. So if you're looking for something light, go for Children of the Corn. The Conjuring 2, The Enfield Poltergeist, 2016. In 1977, paranormal investigators Lorraine and Ed Warren travel to London to assist the Hodgson family. Peggy Hodgson seeks their help as she believes her daughter is possessed, as strange events are haunting her 4 children. The situation only intensifies when a malevolent entity takes control of Janet, the second eldest child. However, as they dig deeper, they uncover a threat far more ominous than they anticipated, threatening not just to the family, but also to the Warrens themselves. The Conjuring 2 wastes no time in delivering thrills. It jumps right into the action, setting the stage with a chilling backstory from another haunting case. While there are new twists in the story, the overall format stays true to the original Conjuring to retain its sense of familiarity. This movie delivers more frequent frights compared to the first installment and will indeed scare you, even if you have seen the original. Let the Right One In, 2008. In this Scandinavian gem, vampirism takes on a different role than usual metaphors like drug addiction or AIDS. Here, it's a lens to explore something more universally shared, the loneliness of adolescence. Oscar, a young outsider in a chilly Swedish suburb, bonds with Ellie, a girl who's also isolated for complex reasons. Although their friendship speaks to their shared feelings of loneliness, soon the twists start rolling in. Titled after a Morrissey track, the film mirrors its chilly yet heartfelt vibe as it is melancholic yet filled with romance. Even if the setting is icy, the emotions run deep. Surprisingly, it's one of the best adaptations of vampire lore you'll see, and there's also an American remake, which is decent, but the original strikes a perfect balance to make your heart swell up and your skin crawl. Hour of the Wolf, 1968. Watching Swedish actor von Sydow play a tormented artist in Ingmar Bergman's exploration of a man in profound turmoil inevitably reminds me of his self-mocking portrayal as a troubled painter in Woody Allen's Hannah and Her Sisters. However, this is a much more serious affair, as reality and imagination blur together as von Sydow's demons consume the film's imagery and atmosphere, while his wife recounts this harrowing period in their lives. Created in tandem with Persona, Bergman dives into the terrifying depths of an artist's mind as his marriage crumbles. The film occasionally plunges into a full-blown gothic nightmare, featuring characters walking on ceilings, men transforming into birds in hallucinations, and a chilling flashback where von Sydow's character recalls attacking a young boy with a rock. This haunting narrative becomes even more poignant when you realize it reflects Bergman's own struggles and nervous breakdown during the mid-1960s. Lake Mungo, 2008. This Australian gem, often overlooked, revolves around the Palmer family coping with the tragic drowning of their daughter, Alice. Utilizing a documentary format, Lake Mungo unfolds through interviews and footage as the Palmers experience eerie occurrences and unsettling images of Alice, sparking the journey to uncover her secrets and untangle the threads of her life. The film captures the family's grief and emotional turmoil in a refreshingly realistic manner, steering clear of melodrama. Sure, Lake Mungo might not rely on jump scares, but it excels in building an unsettling ambiance and a creepy sense of dread. The unexpected twists and turns in the plot, coupled with the film's emotional core, set it apart from typical horror movies. Drag Me to Hell, 2009. In this film, Christine Brown works as a loan officer in LA and is aiming for a promotion to assistant manager. To appear more assertive to her boss, she refuses a third extension on a mortgage payment for an old gypsy woman. So, in retaliation, the woman curses Christine and unleashes a demon to torment her. As Christine's life spirals out of control, she seeks help from a fortune teller and his Latin American companions to banish the demon before it drags her to hell. The ending of the movie is pretty controversial. It might leave you scratching your head trying to figure out what the Raimi brothers were thinking while making this. Actually, when you think about the choices they made, the whole story feels a bit pointless, but it's still a fun ride. Sam Raimi gives us a wild journey with some shocking and funny moments, many of which remind me of his Evil Dead films. The Witch, 2015. Robert Eggers made a huge impact with his first film, The Witch, which is a slow-burning masterpiece filled with religious fervor, colonial pride, and dark magic. This movie's beautifully crafted, with scenes bathed in the glow of oil lamps and a visual style that feels like old woodcut illustrations come to life. The attention to detail, from the authentic dialogue to the rustic sets, is truly impressive. The Witch is a terrifying experience, which documents the story of exiled settlers slowly descending into paranoia, ultimately landing into a scary and deranged climax. The concept of this film is so amazing, I literally can't put it to words without spilling the main juice, so please check this one out. Veronica, 2017. Veronica is often labeled as one of the scariest films available on Netflix, with well-crafted scares and chilling demonic visuals that leave a lasting impression. The story follows a teenage girl named Sandra Escacina, who, during a solar eclipse, uses a Ouija board with her friends in an attempt to contact her deceased father. However, this leads to her being tormented by malevolent forces. Veronica delivers the eerie and unsettling atmosphere typical of possession films. However, what sets it apart and makes it particularly haunting is its roots in a true story. Inspired by the Vallecas case, where a young girl also used a board to communicate with a loved one before tragically passing away, the movie carries a sense of authenticity that amplifies its creepiness and makes it hard to watch without feeling a tingle down your spine. Jacob's Ladder, 1990. Adrian Lyne's movie Jacob Ladder is a surprising addition to this list, and it may not be as popular nowadays, but it still lingers in the minds of true horror enthusiasts. The film gives us a glimpse of Jacob's life, a war veteran whose sanity starts unraveling after the war ends. As the plot thickens, we find that it's not just his mind playing tricks, there's something darker at play. The movie's visual design gives it a psychedelic and experimental feel, blending post-hippie vibes with a touch of MTV-era style. While it may lack some depth and subtlety, it compensates with shocking moments and a sense of unpredictability. Talk to Me, 2022. This Australian horror film has become A24's top-grossing horror flick, following in the footsteps of hits like Hereditary, and you'll be shocked to hear that it's a directorial debut of two famous YouTubers. Talk to Me explored themes of grief and the consequences of dabbling with the supernatural as a group of teens experiment with an embalmed hand to summon spirits for fun, only to end up unleashing terrifying supernatural forces beyond their control. Talk to Me is a relentlessly dark and grim film from beginning to end. It's filled with unsettling imagery and anxiety that stays with you long after watching. What's particularly disturbing is that despite its fantastical plot, the story feels unusually plausible. The Others, 2001. The Others stars Nicole Kidman as a mother of two children with a rare condition that keeps them indoors in this sophisticated ghost story set in 1945 on the island of Jersey. Drawing its inspiration from The Innocents, Spanish director Alejandro Amenabar disrupts the calm lives of this family by bringing in three new servants who bring in unsettling supernatural events. Instead of outright terror, the scares build gradually, with doors closing on their own and pianos playing without anyone touching them. It's a mature and psychologically rich horror film, crafted with intelligence and a timeless sense of craftsmanship, so maybe give this rare gem a chance. Mother, 2017. Mother, directed by Darren Aronofsky, is easily one of the most polarizing films out there. Here, Jennifer Lawrence plays the main character and lives with Javier Bardem's him in a Victorian mansion in the countryside. But soon it gets inherently chaotic when unexpected guests start showing up, leading to a confusing and terrifying series of events for Mother. The film keeps you on edge throughout, using powerful allegories, intense sound design, and shaky camera work to tell its metaphorical tale. This unique approach has split opinions among fans and critics, with some praising it as a brilliant masterpiece, while others finding it confusing and messy. But in my opinion, Mother builds up unexpectedly and becomes genuinely frightening, leading to an explosive finale that leaves you disturbed and hesitant to ever think of rewatching this film again. Antichrist, 2009. Lars von Trier is known for his daring and provocative filmmaking style, and his movie Antichrist only exemplifies this reputation. This psychological horror film follows a couple, referred to as he and she, who retreat to a secluded cabin in the woods following the tragic loss of their child. However, very soon their journey quickly turns into a haunting exploration of psychological and physical torments, forcing them to confront their deepest beliefs and fears. Antichrist is a conflicting horror film that takes on the concept of violence, sex, grief, and trauma with raw intensity. Although most horror enthusiasts seem to love it, critics have labeled it as misogynistic for its boundary-pushing content. Regardless of where you stand, please be aware that Lars von Trier's work, especially Antichrist, is definitely not for beginners. I believe we've covered the best of every subgenre in the horror realm, but still, there's a lot that goes undocumented in this list. So, in the upcoming videos, we hope to explore more unusual grounds this genre thrives upon. All of these films intricately capture the essence of the unknown and use it to tap into our primal fears, whether it's the supernatural, extraterrestrial, or the baffling depths of the forest. Now, which are your top 5 scariest picks from this list? Let us know in the comment box below. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one, and be safe. Thanks everyone.